Hey, ladies and gentlemen, what's up? And let's be real, it's most likely gentlemen watching because this is pro wrestling. I'm your boy BQ here with a new podcast here at the Impact Lounge. We're calling this one the Impact Republic, just to give you guys some new content here at the channel and on podcast platforms. This is going to be a monthly podcast right now. This is not going to be coming out weekly or bi-weekly or 2-3 times a week. It's just monthly. It's going to be talking about some topics throughout the month of Impact, whatever is going on, recap a few things, and hope it's something you guys enjoy. I think you will. And we've got my boy Mike here. He will be my co-host for this podcast, new part of the team. So if you would just do us a favor real quick, Mike, introduce yourself, say whatever you'd like to say about yourself, and then we'll get into some Impact.
Let's do it, man. So, hey, my name's Mike Gilbert. I run a website called thecombatrepublic.com. And I am also an Air Force vet along with BQ here. And I am real excited to come on here and talk some Impact with you, man.
Hell yeah. He's cooler than me because he's active duty and I'm just a reservist. But I was active duty for like 15 years. So I can be cool. I can be cool too. But yeah, that's something we have in common. And, that's what brought us together. Also love for Impact. So we're going to talk about a few things. And again, these are just going to be some topics we're just going to go over real loose, and then we'll tighten up this format as things go, as I read feedback and all that good shit. So we're going to kick it off with this. This is obviously a dead horse that I beat in all my content right now, and it's the AEW partnership. I don't even know what to call it really, because if you watch AEW, it's do you watch AEW?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, so the Impact mentions there are very, very minimal in the program, to where it's blown up quite a bit if you watch Impact. So it's definitely not even. But give me your thoughts, because obviously I talked to other people on my channel, the other podcasters, and we've chatted about this. So I don't know, what do you think about this whole thing, and what are your expectations or thoughts on it in general?
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think this is probably one of the hottest storylines that we've seen in wrestling in a long time, especially this year where most of the storylines were rather bland. A lot of it was due to COVID and things like that. But whenever you can kind of cross boundaries between two companies who seemingly wanted nothing to do with each other for a long time, I think that's really cool. I think it's cool that Don Callis and Kenny Omega were able to bridge that gap between them. As far as expectations, I fully expect that Kenny Omega is going to be the Impact champion this year. And I honestly, I'm predicting that it's going to happen in Hard to Kill. I know that if you're watching Impact each week, it's pointing towards a Moose Rich Swann match. Right. Well, as we all know, those were taped weeks before the Kenny Omega stuff went down. So I think they're calling an audible there. I think Kenny Omega is going to go on to Hard to Kill and win the Impact championship. And he's going to be a part of Impact going forward. Not a huge part of Impact, but you're going to see him on some TV shows and some backstage vignettes, and then headlining some pay-per-views later this year as they try to make Kenny Omega, a new version of the Ultimo Dragon or the Great Muta,
right?
One of the all-time great legendary champions. I think that's what Tony Khan is going for, and he's going to use Impact for that. And then Impact obviously gets the help. I mean, this was the most buzzworthy show they've had since the Spike era, right? I mean, they had some buzz with some of the Broken Hardy stuff, which really broke some records for them on YouTube and things like that. But I've never seen anything like this as far as interest for it. And as far as AEW not mentioning Impact a whole lot versus Impact mentioning AEW all throughout the show. Well, there's levels to this, right? So when you have your popularity and your buzz and your viewership, AEW is way up here, and Impact is kind of struggling a little bit down here. There's 5 pro wrestling shows in primetime TV all throughout the week, and you would have to rank Impact as far as total viewership goes and popularity. They're number 5, right? And so they could use this buzz. I'm excited for them to have it, and I'm super excited to see what Kenny Omega does going forward.
That's an interesting prediction, because I feel like we're going to see Kenny Omega with the championship for sure. They only teased it so far. They're not going all in. They're not, they planted the seeds with Rich Swann not being able to exit the building which is odd because usually you're not allowed to enter a building, exit, whatever. But
Yeah.
but I guess if the bus was out there, he
Well,
wasn't allowed to
it's a
slip
fire
out.
hazard too. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there we go. So they're teasing it. They tease though maybe he'll collect belts like he collects comic books, but the way Impact books things, like I agree with you. I fully expect him to win the title at some point and carry that title around on other programs or bring it to AAA or bring it wherever. Because what sucks for me is that Rich Swann probably, dude, I like Rich Swann a lot, but I can't say he feels like the world champion right now. I wouldn't say I would say he feels more like a champion for me personally than Eddie or Eli Drake did when they were champion. I guess because those ones were so random, and this one at least had some crescendo to it. But
well, and so what they did there is they built up to give you that moment, right? And that was one of my favorite storylines of the year was the Swann and Eric Young storyline and Swann's comeback story. And they built up to that beautiful moment at Bound for Glory that really needed a crowd there because that was so perfect the way that they did that. You know what it reminded me of, and I don't know how versed you are in WWE. It reminded me of the build up to Daniel Bryan getting, on a smaller scale, obviously, with Daniel Bryan finally getting that title shot and finally winning at WrestleMania. And then like the 2 months after that, once he got it, nobody really cared anymore.
I was watching.
They kind of had moved on at that point. Hey, he got his moment. Okay, now what? And I feel that a little bit with Rich Swann. It's that, and there's not really any main event level title challengers for him to face other than Moose. Really, like Chris Bay is awesome. He's a really good young wrestler that has a bright future. What was he worthy of the main event? In talent, yes, but in star power, no, obviously.
Right.
But they don't really have anybody for him to wrestle at this point other than Moose. But you throw Kenny Omega in there, it doesn't matter who's in the ring with him. It's a main event. That's the difference. That's how there's levels to this game. Kenny Omega just on Saturday had a 4 3/4 5-star match, whatever you want to call it, with fucking Laredo Kid, right? Laredo Kid is a good wrestler. Not many people know who he is, but after that, they figured out who he was, right? Because Kenny Omega's doing the Ric Flair, the Nick Bockwinkel, going to the territories, making the local guy look good, and he's the perfect guy to do that. And he carries himself like a star, and he brings star presence wherever he goes. And Impact is just going to benefit so much. Rich Swann's going to benefit a lot just being in the ring with Kenny Omega on a pay-per-view main event that is likely to do the most pay-per-view buys in the history of Anthem-owned Impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're, I think Slammiversary holds that right now, but I can see that happening. I'm one of those people, I really feel that when someone becomes a world champion, you should alter the gimmick a little bit. Like Kenny Omega has, obviously. It's a good example. You alter the gimmick a little bit so it doesn't feel as mid-cardish or I would always say mid-cardish, but you just change the direction a little bit. But you mentioned that match when he won a world title needing a crowd noise. So I'm curious if you feel like I do, to where before this AEW thing kicked off, I was actually I said it a few times on my other podcast, that I was starting to get bored. Not that the show was bad, but it was almost becoming depressing watching the show, because there's just, the way I always say it, if you were to look up empty arena wrestling in the dictionary, and I know a whole phrase isn't going to be in the dictionary, but if you were to look empty arena wrestling, like that's what Impact gives you. There's no, it doesn't matter if you watch WWE or NXT or AEW or the WNBA or the NBA, like the MLB, everyone put their own spin on it. You watch the NFL, there's a spin on it with everything, but Impact is like empty arena wrestling 100%. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on like there's no noise, there's no crowd noise, there's no
my thoughts are they need to fix it ASAP. If they're going to retain any of this new audience that just came over, and from the things that I've seen, it's the internet, so you never really know how much weight it has, but from some of the feedback that I've gotten as kind of being the resident Impact guy among my friends, that was a huge distraction for them, was into the ring and you can hear people breathing or holding the camera, right? Like it's kind of just, it has this eerie feeling surrounding it. And it's not so, and people, some of the Impact fans will say, well, Bellator and UFC, they don't have any fans in there and they're not cheering. Well, no, but they do have corner man, right? And they're screaming a little bit, but also while they're in there, these guys are knocking the shit out of each other in UFC and in Bellator, and it's a legitimate sport. In pro wrestling, to get that full entertainment aspect, the crowd is part of that. You don't, when two guys are fighting, you don't really need the crowd to help you enjoy it. But with pro wrestling, you do. And I think they're in like a June and July and time frame. I think they really kind of had perfected the art of empty arena wrestling. But right now, I mean, look, these it's not really hard hitting action for the most part. It's really short matches, a lot of comedy stuff, and for the most part, it's a lot of backstage sketches. And I think that if they're going to continue going down that path, they're going to have to incorporate some type of audience to be able to help these matches along, because like I said, when it comes to the top 5 programs, wrestling programs that are on television in North America, or the US, not really North America, they're the only ones right now without the crowd. I'm not counting Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is great. I love Ring of Honor. And they're doing true empty arena too. But speaking of Impact specifically, I think with their style, they really need the crowd to help them on. And even if it's just, like dudes from OVW or whatever training school that they have, if they're just bringing them, put them around the ring, or, my favorite venue in all of pro wrestling right now, besides the Thunderdome, is the Capitol Wrestling Center for NXT. And I'm not a routine viewer of NXT, but I do like to watch their big shows and the occasional match. Mm-hmm. They got some screens around, they got a few people in the crowd, and they pipe in some of the WCW 1998 crowd noise, the fake crowd noise.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds great. Sometimes it can be distracting, but for the most part, you don't get that eerie feeling when you're watching it. It's really enjoyable.
That's kind of what I was going to ask, what do you think about piping and crowd noise? So I don't know if you remember when Jarrett when he returned to the company, they were piping in crowd noise for the entrances. And for the baby faces, it sounded okay. But for the heels, it was like, boo, like no one boos like that anymore,
No.
So it sounded like really, really bad. But I feel like even some kind of white noise or some kind of crowd rumbling, just something, because when you're watching AEW, they have, I don't know, I want to say they like up to 5. No, the pay-per-views had like 1,000 people or 500, something like that.
I think their pay-per-view, they had 1,000, but they're getting like 200 to 300 people a week.
Okay. But it's like, it sounds really good.
Well, they're piping in fake crowd noise too.
Are they really?
That. Yeah.
It sounds very natural then.
Well, but they also have Turner Sports, helping them out with that. So, because the NBA was really good with their crowd noise. It took them a while, but they're like in the playoffs. You knew that there was nobody there, but you didn't really care.
Right.
So I think right now, people can deduce what kind of time we're living in. Back then, when Jeff Jarrett was doing that, they had to pipe in that fake crowd noise because the people that were there got in for free and they didn't give a shit what they were watching, right?
Yeah.
And then they would pan to the audience and nobody was saying anything. They were just kind of eating their popcorn or whatever they were doing because they were in Universal for free. But with this, look, it's the time that we're in. You can make the best of it. Right now is a good opportunity to retrain your audience to who to cheer and who to boo, right?
Right.
And I think that, Eric Young wouldn't be as effective as a heel right now if there were people in the audience to try to take the show over, right? They're going to see, oh, hey, he was the former TNA guy and who got screwed over by WWE. We're going to cheer him despite whatever he's doing. So right now, you throw in some plants, maybe get some real fans, and you get some screens around the ring, and pipe in some fake crowd noise. I think they need to upgrade from the studio that they're in. Honestly, if they're going to meet this moment with Kenny Omega, if they're going to make this production look like a big thing, they got to get a bigger studio. I mean, have you noticed that they haven't had a single cage match or a ladder match or anything like that? They'd be touching the ceiling if they tried any of that stuff. So no Ultimate X, which I think is cool. I think they should have limited that stuff anyway. But eventually, you're going to want to have some of those things. And so, they're going to have to get some crowd noise in, maybe get into a bigger facility, whatever they got to do. But right now they have a very good opportunity here with this partnership with AEW. If they upgrade their production, which is some of the most complaints that I was getting from people, they have a real chance to retain some of this audience.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up the AEW thing, because this is the crowd you're trying to get, and they're listening to a show that sounds really good right now, as you said, with piped in crowd noise and things like that. And then you watch this and it comes off real back. I mean, to us it's different. We watch on a regular basis, but if you're watching for the first time, it's very backyard wrestling-ish, just because you're used to this product that has some kind of noise. I went to a lot of shows in Orlando, actually, because when I used to live in Florida, and I used to drive about 6 hours to several of the shows. And the first one I ever went to was, I mean, it was like the second set of tapings when they debuted. It was the first set of tapings in Orlando when they debuted on Pop. And they had like paddle boards, like the kind you play ping pong with, and it would say Pop on them. And I've said this for years. From my experience being at those shows, there weren't as many tourists as people try to paint there to be. I felt there was always a decent amount of wrestling fans, but these paddles, people were hitting them together, and even the tourists and stuff. And I know because I did talk to some people who were tourists, and I saw them very engaged in the show. But just the fact that they had something to make noise with was really change the dynamic of that. So there's little things you can do to just do that. What were some of the other complaints you saw that from these fans?
So Josh Matthews was a big complaint that I kept getting. He doesn't bother me at all. I don't think that he particularly carries the show and makes it better, but I don't really see him as being a negative either. But that was one of the big things that people, I was getting DMs and messages both on Facebook and on Twitter during a lot of these threads that I'm on regarding Impact. They're if you're in a customer service related field, you should really listen to the customer feedback, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's customers that you want to bring back. I think right now Impact has a good base in America of about 135,000, like steady, right?
Right, steady.
Except for when NXT is on Tuesday night, then they're going to lose a good portion of that audience too. Yeah. But they've been hovering around the 150 to 175. They got up to 221, and then and that's when they started really getting some honest feedback from people who are like, look, I saw your show, here's what I thought of it, and if you'd make these changes, I might come back and watch again, and I'll bring my friends with me. So I thought Josh Matthews was fantastic on the bus with Kenny and Don. I thought he was great back there.
He played his role pretty well.
Yeah. Anytime I've seen him do a backstage interview, I thought he's been great. But the announcing I felt was a little subpar. I think they really need to go after one of the top announcers that are out there. I don't know what Kevin Kelly's contract status is with New Japan. I know he's pretty happy there. I know Mauro Ranallo is lingering out there. He's a Canadian guy. They're Canadian. I don't know if they would even have an in. He used to work for Fight Network, so
true.
I don't know if his exit there was amicable. I don't know how that worked out, but he is out there. He's probably the top free agent, but I think they're going to have to do something there. I did see that they're going to replace Madison Rayne, and obviously I think Matt Stryker would be the top candidate there to replace her. But
yeah.
They're going to have to do something like that. The other stuff was, again, the crowd noise in the studio, and I had a real hard time explaining to people what was going on with Tommy Dreamer and Larry D and Johnny Bravo.
Right.
And it's like one of those things. When it was happening, when my friends weren't watching, I honestly thought it was like enjoyable. It reminded me of some of the crap that they do on BTE, what the Young Bucks and those guys do, that I don't really watch that show anymore, but
right.
It just reminds me of things that they do there.
Yeah.
But then when Tommy Dreamer challenged Larry D to a match, and if Larry lost, then he would have to get arrested for attempted murder. I got a message that said, okay, now explain this shit. And my reply was, I don't know if Bruce Pritchard's book this thing or what? Right? I don't know who's in charge there. Um, so I was one of the few people that really thought it was funny that Johnny Bravo got shot, and I think the execution after the angle has not been great. I think Tommy Dreamer, who I am a big fan of just historically as being an old school ECW fan, and every time I complain about him about to have a match, he ends up going into the match, and the match turns out to be pretty good. But his overacting in a lot of these skits, and the logic behind the storyline is just like, hey, look, we got all these new fans here. Can we just not do this anymore? Let's just pretend that it never happened.
Right.
The hardcores will stick around, and the new people will not be embarrassed to watch this. It was kind of like, oh shit, man, my friends are about to watch this, and I'm gonna get shit for liking it, right? So I think if they could just calm down on the embarrassing stuff, I think that would would go a lot further.
What's funny is, so they just had the Impact Plus event, the Final Resolution. They had an opportunity for Larry D to win the match and to be done with this. Like, yeah. It was an easy out to where it was comedy. Like, wait, you mean I can get out of attempted murder by winning a wrestling match? Like, yeah, silly, but they had an out. And then you think about the money roll thing. They could have, hey, whoever wins gets the damn money. I don't know why no one spent the money, but the winner gets it, and they could have been out, and then they start this new set of tapings or next episode, whatever it is, and you just get rid of that stuff. And they doubled down on both storylines. So do you think that the Bravo storyline and I liked Wrestle House a lot, but everything after was probably better served for YouTube, like kind of what you're talking about with being the Elite. So I understand it's an extension of Wrestle House, but I just don't think it works the same outside of the Wrestle House setting. It just seems like a bad segment,
Well, it's like they didn't know when to end the joke, right?
Yeah.
They're just continuing the same joke over and over, and they don't realize that joke ended months ago.
Right.
Right. But because they got YouTube, it wasn't even that popular on YouTube, honestly. I think I did a story about it during, Wrestle House, because it was one of those things that, like, it was like, got a DM, hey, what the hell is this shit? Right. It was like, look, it's silly, it's stupid, but I gotta be honest, it makes me laugh. It's one of those things. Does it belong on the wrestling show? I don't think so. I think it's better suited for a YouTube or an Impact Plus.
Right.
But I think that, hey, look, they had this Johnny Bravo. He got shot. I think that once he made the comeback from the thing, they could have just arrested James Mitchell and sent him to hell or whatever, and then just moved on. But instead they made Tommy Dreamer he went from being a lawyer to a cop in this whole thing. It's like they're rubbing it in your face, like, hey, look, guys, this is all bullshit. What you're watching, if you like this, you're stupid. Right. It's kind of the way I'm taking it. And so, unfortunately, with the way that I watch Impact is through, like, my buddy has Spectrum cable, and I just log into his app from my house, because we don't get access here.
Okay.
So I don't have DVR capability. So I either have to watch this live, or I have to download it through a torrent and watch it the next day.
Right.
But when I do watch live, it does go to Nielsen. So I did double check that. So when I'm watching live, it goes to Nielsen. But unfortunately, I can't DVR it to fast forward it. So I have to watch it live on the West Coast feed. And it's just those things that I just can't skip, because those are very skippable segments. And that's a lot of the feedback that I was getting.
Do you think that the Bravo storyline and then the Money Roll storyline, because that's the Bravo storyline has its hits and misses for me. Like, there's some of it that I find very funny. The Money storyline, I mean, dude, this is going back to Rhino and Hernandez arm wrestling. So as you said, it's a joke that is just continuing.
Right.
And there's nothing good about this storyline, in my opinion. Like, I think it's bad, and I don't think I've talked to anyone who likes this storyline. But do you think that the Bravo and the Money storylines are hurting the product at all right now? Because you got to think it'd be different. We're just wrapping up the year with a regular Impact show, but now you're trying to bring new people on. I mean, do you think it's hurting it? Like, you're already talking about some DMs where people are like, what is this?
Yeah, no, I think it hurts the growth, right? I don't think that they're going to lose their base viewership because I think the base viewership for the most part finds it entertaining. But if they're wanting to bring in new people, it's really going to hurt the growth, despite the fact that it's just kind of like bad, like wannabe Saturday Night Live type of stuff that AEW does on their YouTube channel. So it's very similar, you know what I mean? But they're doing it on their main show. You would never, Tony Khan's not gonna be caught dead putting this on TNT, right?
Right.
They kick his ass off the station. So, but hey, Access owns the show and they get everything approved through Access, and they, for whatever reason, they're allowing it or they're liking it. But I just don't see the growth potential in it. I think it was funny for the time that it happened. When Scott D'Amore told the doctor to go ahead and pull the plug on Johnny, I spit my water out.
That was
so
hilarious.
Dude, that was one of the funniest lines of the year, right? So occasionally they get me. Same thing with Wrestle House. Like, here I am, this old school kind of like wrestling fan. I just want to see two guys fight over over being angry at each other. That's what I love the most. But then I get caught up in this Wrestle House stuff, and then occasionally they would make me laugh. But the laughs are few and far between, and I don't think it's worth the time that's being spent on it. They should have ended it months ago. And I think Johnny Bravo is great, by the way. I thought he's a great manager with Taya Valkyrie. I think that, if it is true that she's going to be leaving soon, and obviously the pairing with Rosemary is over, I would like to see him being a full-time manager for a tag team or for, a singles wrestler. I think he's been absolutely great in his role, but the story that they're placing him in, I just felt that it should have ended a long time ago.
Yeah, and with the Money Roll storyline, the only benefit for me is that we're getting an evolution of the Fallah Bahh character to where now he just talks normal, which he's needed this for a little while.
Yeah.
And so he's getting evolution in that sense, but he's also taking a step back into comedy where they had the match with Austin Aries and everything, where all of a sudden he started getting some buzz. And then, they pulled back on it. He's starting to enter the comedy world again. And then it helps Hernandez because what else are you going to do with Hernandez? Like, he's not really a long-term. For me, he's not a singles guy. Like, you either had one with the OGs or LAX, or you don't have him. I mean, what else do you do with it? I like that he updated his look, whatever.
I love him constantly grooming his mustache.
Yeah.
By the way. I honestly, I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know where it's going, and I don't think I care, and I don't think anyone cares where it's going. Like, we just want that one. You can get some mileage off Bravo, but this one.
And Bravo, his character acting on the show is just superior to the money ball storyline.
Yeah.
It's giving somebody like Hernandez something to do. It's downgrading Fallah Bahh. Dude, when he had that storyline with Austin Aries and he had that match, and then he beat Moose in like a minute one time, right? And I was like, okay, they're finally going to get behind this guy. When I look at him and he's being taken serious, I see him kind of as a Tomohiro Ishii. Are you familiar with him from New Japan?
No.
Kind of a short, stocky. He can do the strong style wrestling. For your viewers, if you're not really familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I just look up some Ishii, Ishii videos, and he's about like 5'6". He's built like a fire hydrant. Just a real. His name's the Stone Pitbull. Just a real tough bastard. And I thought, man, maybe they can make him kind of like their Ishii. With a little bit more character. I thought that was kind of cool. And then they totally went away from it. I was liking the tag team with TJP, and then they that fell apart. I don't know what happened there. They just broke up one day. But look, it's the bottom of the card. The segments are like 1.5 to 2 minutes long. It had no business being on Final Resolution. But I thought Tasha Steelz was funny in it, if that makes any if that helps.
I was gonna say Tasha and Kiera's involvement in it's good because they're just funny, so they make it work. You kind of brought up TJP and Fallah Bahh, and you're right. There was a point where they actually earned a title shot, and I don't think they ever got the title shot.
I don't think so.
I think they won a non-title match, and then they kind of teased, okay, what's next? And then all of a sudden they start separating these guys. And this was prior to Slammiversary, where I think they might have done a 4-way tag match then.
So, something like that. I know they won something, and then they were supposed to have like a street fight with Reno Scum at some point, and then that just got dropped too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess my kind of question: do you think what do you think of the Impact Tag Division? So, you obviously bring in the Good Brothers. That's big. And on paper, you're kind of like, oh man, you got the North and Motor City Machine Guns, but then you have these other teams that Impact clearly doesn't believe in because they don't get any momentum, no steam, no nothing. They don't get title shots. I mean, look at Reno Scum. They're not getting any momentum. TJP and Falabella got some, and then they pulled back on them. The Rascals never really had much momentum. The Deaners had none, to where they had to split them up because they didn't give them anything to do. Triple XL is a team I like, but now you're invested in. Well, Larry D's in jail, so you know what I mean. So it's like on paper, it's like it's not that bad. But then if you think about it, the Good Brothers almost have no one to fight, and that's a concern to me. ASOS and Madman Fulton, I don't know where the hell they are. That could be for a reason.
Yeah.
They had an opportunity to keep. Obviously, some things happened, but they could have had OVE as far as Dave and Jake do something in a tag team division, and they went a whole year of not really wrestling together in that. They were wrestling more as a 4-man team, losing every week. So what do you think about the tag division? I'm concerned about it. I'm just going to say that. I feel like the Good Brothers, thank God they're doing this AEW thing, because they're going to have no one to fight here soon.
Yeah, just like less than 2 years ago, the tag team division had the North, LAX, the Lucha Brothers, OVE, and the Deaners were kind of coming up a little bit, and the Rascals, of course. So it was a strong suit for Impact, and now it's almost just like it's the Good Brothers and the Motor City Machine Guns, and then nobody else. Ethan Page, everybody thinks he's leaving. I feel the same way, given the way that they've been portraying him on TV. And the Deaners just broke up. Triple XL, every time it seems like they get a win, then they lose. They take one step forward, and then they lose 3 matches.
Yeah, right.
And then it's the same thing with Reno Scum. Like they'll get a win on TV, and then you won't see them for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll come back and then they'll lose. Right?
Yeah, because they won their last match, and that was weeks ago.
Right. And those guys are good.
Yeah.
I have seen them on the California Independence here. I when I was stationed at Travis, I used to go to All Pro Wrestling in San Francisco, and they were the top team there, and they're fantastic. They got a great look. I wish they wouldn't do wrestler voice promos, relax on that a little bit, but I think that they're you can sell some merchandise with those guys. You can sell toys with those guys. And they really have just not gotten behind them. And I don't know why. I think Adam Thornstowe is a fantastic wrestler. Dude, yeah. I saw Thornstowe take on Johnny Impact in APW one time. They went 25 minutes and tore the house down, right? He can actually go. But it's the talent is there, but management isn't really getting behind these guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's hey, we don't trust that we're going to get to keep them long term. Well, whose fault is that? Right? You guys are paying them per date, and you're not willing to extend them out. You're not going to compete with any other company to keep them. So of course they're going to leave.
Right.
So, I think that, the Good Brothers are likely to turn heel. They have, even though they've come in and they've really kind of put a buzzer on Impact, and they have the cool factor, they are better as heels, right? I think they need to go heel for a little while.
Yeah.
Especially if they're going to be taking on the Motor City Machine Guns and doing an extended program there. There's rumors of a Young Bucks match. We'll see if that happens in AEW or Impact. And then who do you got? Heath and Rhino, right? Former WWE.
There's them too. Yeah. I didn't even think about them.
Former WWE tag team champions. Have you ever seen them in a good match? No. Maybe one, right? Right. So. Are you going to sell pay-per-views with Heath and Rhino taking on, the Good Brothers? I don't think so. You might pop a rating with it with some old guy who was like, oh, I saw that guy on the Real Wrestling,
Yeah, right.
So, but if you're going to get the young audience, you're going to have to bring in some young guys and some up-and-coming tag teams.
Yeah.
I think AOP, they are free agents right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see them get another shot. They are not cast-offs, right? They are wasted talent with a grievance. That's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
They're not guys that sucked that the WWE didn't want anymore. They were wasted talents with a grievance. And one of the guys got injured a couple of times, and they lost faith in them. Those guys can be pushed, and those guys are big, scary dudes that had some really good matches, especially with Eric Young and Sanity
Yeah.
there in NXT. So I think they can do something with those guys.
And
I don't know if they're going to do Eric Young and Joe Doring as a tag team. I'd rather not. I think Joe Doring is more valuable as a single for them.
uh-huh.
But they that's maybe something they could do. There's these young guys, Lee Moriarty and Trey Lamar on the independents that Alex Shelley's been really
Yeah,
bumping
hyping
up
up.
big time. Yeah, bringing them to the shows. Maybe they try to do something with them.
Yeah.
But right now it's looking kind of bleak, and I think that's why we're seeing none of these teams get any momentum, is because they just continue to wrestle each other and they take turns losing.
Right. Another team I would like to see is the Ascension, because that's one, for those who watch them in NXT, they were the hottest team by far. And then I think there's still a portion of the wrestling world that wants to see someone do them right.
Yeah.
Do
They
right.
would have to repackage them big time, give them
Yeah.
a different look, and build them up from the ground up, because they were made to look like absolute jokes on the main roster.
Yeah.
Like just straight up comedy characters are getting beat up every week by legends. They were kind of a farcical 80s ripoff tag team and made to be a joke. And that guy Big Con, he's a good promo, decent wrestler. He's like 325 pounds or something like that. He's like 6'4". Like
Right.
he's he has a presence about him. The other guy, Victor, kind of a smaller guy, not particularly a great worker, but he worked well within that system.
Yeah.
They could probably do something with them.
Mm-hmm. And you brought up a point. I talk about this all the time. No one has momentum. That's even roster wide, because I think the roster is too small. And I wouldn't even say, I remember my WWE days, and I'm sure it's still the case, there was a lot of 50-50 booking.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say Impact 50-50 books, but they, to your point, like someone wins a match and then they lose their next two, and just no one gets on any kind of roll.
Right.
And people always tell me all the time, well, you can't push everyone at once. Well,
no.
Yeah, but you got to push somebody.
Yeah.
If you think of like AEW's roster, I remember, I'll put it like this first. I remember watching WWE, and you knew when someone was getting pushed. Like, okay, this guy's getting a push, because out of nowhere they started winning all these matches. Like, I watch an AEW product, I don't feel like someone's getting pushed, but a lot of people do have momentum, and Dark helps that, because they're able to pad their win-loss record with some squash matches. You know what I mean? But that's, you can take a team like the Butcher and the Blade, who's my favorite team there. They usually lose, but they have a winning record because they wrestle a lot of squash matches. So you can actually put them into a fairly big angle, and it works.
Right. Well, they come off believable, and when they do lose, like, they're not getting, just squashed in a few minutes. At no point during the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Triple XL match did I think the Triple XL had a chance to win.
Right.
Not even a single point. I think that the Machine Guns took the whole match, even though the Triple XL could be like this big monster team. They at no point were they ever in serious doubt that it was going to be Motor City Machine Guns winning. So if you have no belief, right, that one team is going, that either team has a chance, then why do you care about watching, right?
Yeah.
So they give me no indication that Triple XL is going to do anything other than lose, which is what they always do. And so, that's why nobody cared about the match, even though it was a really good match. I thought it was a good match. I mean, Motor City Machine Guns are great. So that wasn't a Final Resolution. That was that was on TV a couple weeks ago. That was just like, that's just an example. So, they don't have the roster to be able to do squash matches, right? And they're not really going to be spending the money to be bringing people in during a pandemic to bring them in just to lose. And so what you have now is just somebody gets a win, and then all of a sudden, they get hyped up a little bit, and then they lose their next match.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to grow that roster, and they're going to have to open things up a little bit.
I remember the Good Brothers' first match was against Reno Scum, and I was excited for that match. And then you watch the match, and it's like what you said with Triple XL. Like, at no point during that match it did feel like Reno Scum was going to win. And I thought that was a missed opportunity to say, okay, we're going to take this team we haven't featured much and put them on these guys' level for a little bit and have them go at it. But the Good Brothers were winning almost the entire match. And, the finish of the match was super flat. And I thought that was just a really big missed opportunity to give those guys something, because you can look good in defeat. And I think that's what I'm missing for me in Impact is guys don't look good in defeat. I think Kimberly's the only one for me who looks good when she loses. I always think she loses almost every match, but I always like, dude, she can wrestle though. Like I still get that vibe. But we're going to transition to knockouts. This is the last thing I want to talk about tonight. We're going to try to keep this one shorter. I can't stay up too late tonight because last night so I have restless leg syndrome, and I have to take gabapentin before bed, and I accidentally took an Adderall for ADHD.
Yeah.
And I wake up like 2 hours later, and I'm like, why can I not go back to sleep? And I mean, I'm doing everything I can.
What are they, both blue pills?
They're not blue, but they're orange. They're like an orange capsule. They look exactly the same. Right. But I took the wrong one, and then around 4:30 in the morning, I'm like, it hit me that I grabbed the wrong bottle. So I'm gonna crash here any moment. At least I hope I am.
Yeah, well, you made a hell of a graphic last night in your during your overnight Adderall night.
Yeah, the graphic for this podcast, I didn't know at the time that I had taken the Adderall. I just knew I could not sleep. So I was like, dude, I'm going to knock out this.
That's why I got a message from you at 5 a.m. with a new graphic. I was like, this is great.
I was like, I'm hoping this doesn't wake him up. But and, I know I'm like 2 hours ahead of you. So last thing I'm talking about, the knockouts, get your thoughts on the knockouts tag team division. I did a little digging, and I don't think the Sea Stars and Renee Michelle and Killer Kelly are sticking around necessarily. They could, but I don't think that's the plan at the moment. So that's a division that needs a couple girls. Sea Star's very odd gimmick, by the way, but I guess they make it work.
I don't know what a Sea Star is still.
Yeah. Like she had in the Final Resolution picture the hook in her mouth, and I was just like, what an odd gimmick. But I mean, I'm not dogging it. It's just odd, and you got to be original in this this wrestling landscape. But so, what are your thoughts about the Knockouts tag team division and the tag team tournament? Because this was something I've been wanting to see for a really long time, and people always tell me, well, they don't have enough knockouts. So I'm like, well, you can always bring chicks in. I mean, they did it for this tournament. You can always. They do the Impact Plus. Hopefully, they're done with the Twitch shows, because those are always really bad. The Impact Plus ones have been pretty good. Grab an local indie team. I mean, you can make it work. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this so far? I thought this should have been a really, really big buzz generator outside of the Impact fan bubble, and I don't think that's been the case.
No. Yeah. So I think what it did is it did create some goodwill, because you're going to get some folks with social justice type of stuff thinking that the women are being held down or whatever. So you kind of give them an olive branch. So, hey, we're going to have this tag team division. We're going to bring the Knockouts tag team division back. And I think that's a good thing, right? I think that I think women deserve more opportunity in the wrestling landscape. And so if you have a tag team title, that's going to give more women more jobs. And I think there are good quality women wrestlers out there that just need to be given a chance, and they need to be groomed in the right way. But they're going to have to get behind it. And so, yeah, you're right. It didn't really generate a ton of buzz. I'll tell you what I do like that they did. They planted the seeds for this division like 8 months ago, where they just slowly started, like teams just started to naturally develop, right?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden Nevaeh shows up, and then like Havoc and Nevaeh just started like slowly becoming a team. And then just, Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan kind of meet, and then they have things in common, and their relationship starts to form. And next thing you know, they're a team, right? Same thing with Giona and Kimberly. Like they started to become a team. Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie, they just organically started to become a tag team.
Yeah.
So now you have all these organic tag teams, and then they decided to have some title belts versus like, hey, look, people are complaining that we don't have enough women. Let's just bring these belts in. Okay, we're gonna announce that first, and now we're just gonna be bringing in a bunch of randos.
Yeah. You're right.
They did the opposite. I do like that. I think that was great. I think the Sea Stars are somebody that you keep around. They could use some more work on TV a little bit. I if they're not keeping Killer Kelly there, that is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Because right now is the time that they could probably sign her, and not just in the tag division. I think she could be a big star chasing that title for.
She looks like a star. Yeah.
She just screams star. Her work is crisp and solid. I saw her at a blood sport show earlier this year.
Okay.
And I got to cover that one for Fight TV, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought she looked great. She looked really great in that one. So if they're not signing her, they have dropped the ball, right? And so I think they have the pieces in place. I think eventually you're going to start seeing the same issues that they're having with the men's tag team division, where you're going to have 2 or 3 tag teams, and then people are just going to kind of beat each other, right? And then all of a sudden, maybe one person will get on a 1 to 2 match win streak, and then all of a sudden get a title shot, and that interest will wane. So they're going to have to make sure that they clean that up a little bit. But in order to do that, it's the same issue that we've been talking about. They're going to have to expand the roster, right? And they're going to have to open up the pocketbooks. And so right now they don't have enough people under contract. They're not touring, so they're not going to have access to all the local indie talent that they have. So they can't really have the squash matches. So so they've just been kind of holding steady right now, and with the same little kind of skeleton crew that they're running. So I have a positive outlook on this thing. I think it's going to be good. I think for the most part, the matches in the knockouts tournament have been quite good.
Yeah.
And if they don't give Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan the first tag team title or belts, if they're not the first champions, I think that's a mistake. I think that while I love Jazz and Jordynne Grace, I thought that was kind of a cool pairing, and I love the fact that Jordynne Grace completely fooled me. So much so, I wrote a story saying that Taylor Wilde was her partner, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because it kind of leaked that she was at the tapings and that she was making her debut soon. So I just did some deductive reasoning, right? And I was like, oh, well, she's definitely going to be Grace's partner. Completely wrong. Some people thought that I was putting out fake news or something like that. I'm like, dude, there's a difference between my opinion, right, and a prediction than what actually is going to happen. I didn't say that this was going to happen. So
I created, to cut you off for saying, I created a thumbnail graphic foreshadowing that she was going to be the partner.
But guess what? Being wrong is okay, right?
Yeah.
Nobody got hurt. I was completely wrong about that, and I admitted it. And I like the fact that they kept that secret. They completely surprised me, and I think Jazz is great. She kind of looks like your friend's mom that will whoop your ass if you disrespect her couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she kind of has that vibe to me. So, and I used to watch, I don't know if you watched ECW back in the 90s, but I was
a little bit.
I was a huge ECW guy, man. I bought every tape. I watched, my dad had an illegal cable box, and I got to get to watch all the pay-per-views for free. So I was super huge into ECW. So I think I really like the teams that are in it. I do hope that they keep some of the talent that they brought in for it. I hope they keep some of them around. They're going to need them. And I hope that Tasha and Kiera Hogan, who I think have the best team dynamic and the most charisma, I hope that they win.
Yeah. And I think, excuse me, I think Renee Michelle has a place too, because they do lack one of those, like, girl. I mean, I'm not saying that chicks aren't attractive in the division, but they do lack that, like, that look that she has.
Right.
They don't have that currently.
You need all the flavors of ice cream, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't have, like, they got some like rough looking chicks, and they got some like badasses, and then they have, Renee's the kind of the glamour girl type of supermodel, like Instagram model type of thing. So Jordynne Grace, the powerhouse, all shapes and sizes. She would fit in just fine.
The thing that they threw me for a huge loop for, and I'm glad they did, was I thought they were going to team up Jordan and Tenille. And at that point, I was like, well, they're going to win.
Right.
And they actually swerved it to where they teamed up and then broke up right away. So I think it hurt them too that they didn't have Susie and Kylie Ray to team up.
Yeah.
So I think that hurt them a little bit. That's a team down. I wasn't a big fan of and I'm in the minority here, but I'm a big Alicia Edwards fan. like I was real disappointed that they actually put a team together with her and Tennille, and they even teased them being called the influencers, and then they broke it up right away, and Alicia went right back to I'm Eddie's wife, so that was really disappointing. So now
Right.
Tennille's lacking a partner, Alicia's lacking a partner, Jordan's not going to have a full-time partner, and then Su Yung is not going to have a partner most likely.
No.
So there's some moving parts they got to fix there to make it a legit division, or we're just gonna, as you say, see the same people.
Right. Well, and I think Taya contract's up soon.
Yeah.
I'm not saying she's leaving. I am gonna say that they have not done a great job of retaining talent. So,
yeah.
And I kind of compared Impact to kind of like a major, like a Kansas City Royals type of team where they groom these young talent, right? And then all of a sudden now they got to compete with the Yankees to be able to keep them, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, can I replace their level of production with somebody from the draft, right? Or somebody from minor league, or do I pay top dollar to keep them, right? And for the most part, as much as I love Ethan Page, I do think that he would be worth keeping. I think that they can replace his level of production as far as, ratings and merchandise and things like that with somebody from, the draft or from the minor leagues or something like that.
Right.
I think they see the same thing with Taya, despite the fact that she's been a top star for them for a long time. But if you take a look at where their growth has come recently, right, it's come from WWE castoffs, right, with a grievance. And so they're willing to give those guys more money because they're going to get more ratings out of them. And, look, I don't really think Kurt Hawkins is particularly good, but he has that WWE pedigree. He's coming in and he's probably already one of their top merchandise sellers, despite all of that. So I think that's how that they see it. Anthem has their bean counters, and that's what they're looking at. It's like, hey, look, Ethan Page is 10 times the wrestler and 10 times the promo than Kurt Hawkins, but we're going to go ahead and give Kurt Hawkins the money because he's going to bring us a little bit more notoriety, despite the fact that he lost over 300 matches in a row, right?
I think what hurts him too is that the company, from what I'm reading online, seems to view this as a positive, to where they're like, well, when someone's contract goes up, we're going to let them talk to other companies. We're not going to pressure them. Where if you look like with the NBA right now, what's a big story? Like trying to lock down Giannis Antetokounmpo on an extension before he can hit free agency, or and to use another NBA reference, I used this one last month, but Kemba Walker wanted to stay as Charlotte Hornet, and he even told him, I will take a pay cut if it's going to help the team. And then when they made an offer, they lowballed him so bad that the next day he just went and signed somewhere else. And I think that's a dangerous game too, that once you start giving someone some options to talk to other people, and then you come with your offer and it's what I consider a low ball, you're probably lost them at that point.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what happens a lot of the time, because Ethan had said, I can't wait to see what they view my worth to be. And when he said those words, I was like, that's not going to go well.
No.
Because that means he has a number in his head. And if Impact didn't come with that number, he was probably going to skip out. I hope Taya doesn't go. I don't think they can replace Taya. She's been there a long time. That's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, what else can she do besides get the knockouts tag titles, right?
Yeah.
And, as much as I think Tasha and Kiera would be the optimum choice, Rosemary and Taya would be great if Taya's sticking around. I don't know where she thinks she fits into WWE if she decides to go there to be with her husband. I think that if she thinks that she's going to be like way up here, she might get a rude awakening there.
Yeah.
So if she did, sign for money, and if Impact gave her good money to stay, I think that she would, if she's making really good money, she can still do her clothing brand. She can still work dates for AAA and for Stardom or whatever else she wants to do once the pandemic opens back up. I think that's a good option, but it's really up to Impact. Or like, how much money are you willing to offer? Right.
Yeah.
So.
I think Taya finds those things without never. Well, no, I have spoken to her at WrestleCon, but without really, I don't know her. I would have to think based off what I've heard from her. She values the AAA, the Stardom, and then the clothing brand thing, which you see right now, WWE stars can't have their own Twitch and YouTube and all that crap,
Right.
you know. So you would have to believe Taya would have a difficult time doing what she wants to do with that clothing brand if she's locked down to that company. So, you know, I can see that being an issue. It would suck I used to hate what her and Rosemary were doing for a very long time. I mean, they did that like Real Housewives skit, which I hated so much. But they've made it work, and it's been a long-term story. And now I like them together a lot.
They won me over.
Yeah, I would hate for that to split up, because I like Rosemary back in the heel role. Because you split them up, she's just gonna have to go back to the babyface role, and you know, I think they do a very good tweener type of vibe with a lot of the knockouts. Like it's like Havoc and Nevaeh. I would say they're leaning towards baby faces right now, but they've basically been here. I mean, there's a couple teams you're like, I don't really know what they are. A couple of the girls. So, but I think that's going to do it for us tonight with this one. Again, I said we're going to do this every month and kind of talk about some of the topics that have happened over the course of the month, especially as news continues to get out about it. Because it's one thing, a story comes out and then I give you my opinion piece, and then a week later there's a big update and I never really follow up. So, I think with this podcast we'll be able to follow up on stuff like that and just really shoot the shit without, we're not going to be reviewing shows, nothing like that. Just shoot the shit on a few topics. So
that's cool, man. I dig it. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. This was fun. So I look forward to doing it again, and hope you guys all dug it as well. So leave your thoughts in the comments. And for Mike, I'm BQ, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.